Yo, 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 what's poppin', everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Podicast right here in Gab City at Leo's Inn. And we're coming at you from the streets of YouTube on the local corner YouTube, Multimedia YouTube page. And what you can do also, if you want to come through here more, Leo's Inn, we're right, Kakopashale. You can come through. They have rooms for as little as 600 and actually 550 pula per night. For the executive suite, it's $650. And for the presidential suite, it's $1,000. Now, it's 2025. Sometimes you don't want people visiting and coming into your crib, man. So you can book them a place. Book them a presidential suite right here. It's self-catering, and they can have themselves a great time. And this is where we have our Podicast every single week. And today, man, is no different. We have an amazing, amazing guest. I never have like these big, long intros because I actually like our guests breaking it down for themselves, man. But in the house today, when I was at UB, when I got taken in for economics, you were one of the people that I was out there looking up to, thinking, well, one day, this course, which is a major part of the reason why I have you in here, because like he's a myth, he's a legend as far as banking in BW is concerned. And then he moved from banking. He's also a business owner. He's a leader. He's a sports fan. He's also, I just found out, a farmer. Without further ado, guys, in the house we're joined by none other than Mr. Thulisizwe Johnson, affectionately known as Mr. Thuli Johnson. Dumela, sir.
How are you? How are you, sir?
I'm great.
Wonderful.
I can't be as great as you. Liverpool is out here at the top of the league. How's the weather up there?
Well, you know, with soccer, there are two things that make me happy.
Yes, sir.
The first one is Liverpool being top of the league.
Yes, sir.
But the second one is looking down at Manchester United. I don't know whether they're down in 13th, 14th place.
It's bad.
Yeah, that just makes my day.
No doubt. No, I mean, everyone knows your love for the team as well. So it's nice to see that, at least, you know, ever since Avai and Eklopo, you guys had no expectations at the beginning of the season.
No, we had none.
So what's the feeling right now when you watch every single game? Is the expectation to actually now win the league? Is the pressure on now? Or you guys are just gonna, you'll be comfortable with anything?
We had no expectation when Klopp left.
Yeah.
In fact, if you recall, we were very down.
Yeah.
And one of the things you worry about in transition is how quickly the new coach will be able to take on the challenge.
Yes, sir.
Especially following a very powerful character like Klopp.
Yeah.
And Slot has amazed us.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazed us, but there are two things that he seems to have done very well.
Yeah.
One is he's not embarrassed by the legacy of Klopp.
Yeah.
He's embraced it.
Yeah.
He's embraced Klopp's team. He's embraced Klopp's methods while introducing his own.
Yeah.
So, we are a blend of Klopp and Slot.
Awesome.
And the beauty is we had no expectation to be where we are.
Yeah.
So we are riding every day as it comes. We have, of course we would love to win the league.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here. Nobody wins the league in December or January.
Definitely.
Yeah. If we're still top in April, I'll tell you we'll win the league.
You're talking to an Arsenal supporter. Every single time I look at the top at the end of December, I tell people it's like, leave it alone. This thing is a marathon. But I wish we could talk soccer all day. We're here with you because, you've been a leader in a remarkable career from insurance, banking, gambling, regulation. I just want to start from the very, very beginning. I know sometimes it's boring when people watch these shows and we have to start where someone was born. But like, this is of interest to me as well. It's like, where were you born? Where did you go to school? I know you went to GSS. That's one thing that blew my mind in my research. I was like, yeah, you go GSS. Uh-huh. Yeah, you got a bright one.
Yeah. I was born in Mahalape in 1963, before independence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was born to teacher parents. So when you are born to teacher parents, you move. So I've lived in Mahalape itself, I've lived in Lobatse, I've lived in Serowe, we've lived in Francistown, and ultimately we came to Gaborone in 1977.
Sure.
So we have been residents of Gaborone since then. So I've been to several schools in my primary going schools, including Serowe. I started school there. There was a school, Blackbeard. It was essentially a one classroom school where standard 1 to 7 all were all in one class.
Every time I hear these stories, how would that even work? The older guys and the little ones, like, how can someone conduct a lesson?
Imagine the versatility of the day for the poor teacher.
Hey,
Has to teach phonetics for the kids.
Yeah, the little ones.
Yeah, and has to introduce mathematics,
yo,
languages, skills. And ultimately, but I mean, many very good people who've had very good success in their lives came out of that class. Yeah, doctors that I know, engineers that I know, etc., went through that school.
Yeah.
She just divided the board, and so when she's teaching standard 3. I guess it depends on the students what classes are there. It's not like every year there'll be a standard 1 or every year there'll be a standard 5.
Yeah.
It just depends on the mix of the class. So whatever she's teaching, she would teach that school. Yeah. But it was fascinating because I would look at the board and look at the stuff that was being done by the classes I had, and I'd just be fascinated at the complexity of it at the time. And I guess in some ways you imbibe something, even though it's not directed at you.
Yeah.
And then I went to Crescent in Lobatse. I didn't stay too long at Crescent. I didn't particularly like the school. So
what was wrong with the school?
At some point, I just thought it was racist. Yeah, I just felt that it was not a school of equal opportunity. I just never felt comfortable. I mean, in those days, you didn't know what racism was. But when you look back, you say, you know what? And also when you anecdotally get feedback from your parents about the fights they had with the school, about how they were treating you and your own performance. So I went back to Serowe. I went to Swaneng Hill School. And then finished. Then my parents got transferred to Francistown, so I finished at John Mackenzie. Actually, I went to John Mackenzie from a school called Manonye in Serowe. Manonye was a new school, and we were the guinea pigs of the school, which was nice because there was a new faculty. There was a headmaster called Maki Atimile, a lady we loved a lot. Then I had to move to Francistown in my final year. Started 7. So I went to Francistown for a couple of years. I finished that thing. Then I went to Matterspey College.
Okay. Roman Catholic?
Matterspey was not my choice.
It
was what you call your parents' choice. My mother went to Moeng College and always spoke fondly of Moeng College. So I put my first choice as Moeng College. And they said, you must be crazy. You're not going. You're not going there. So anyway, I ended up at Matterspey. Then Agira from 2, we moved to Gaborone. So I then moved to GSS and finished my Cambridge at GSS. And then went to pre-entry science. And then PESC. And then after pre-entry science, I sort of meandered into the science faculty. And in the first year, I realized, these sciences are not for me. So I asked to switch. My initial choice was to switch to law. Ghana, when you are at school, throughout your years, Malaysia had career guidance and whatever. Those years, there was no such thing.
Yeah. How did you know what to do?
That's why you end up in places. So I ended up in science simply because I thought the grades that I got and stuff like that qualified me for science, but I didn't even know what I was going to do with it.
But not a lot has changed, though, really? Even these days. Yeah, I mean, I tell you about me ultimately doing economics. I wasn't that good at maths. I just happened to pass the exam, and the dean at UB, you pass this, this means you can do this. You pass this. So I don't know how much control, even now, a lot of students do have about where they ultimately end.
Yeah, no, I think that the challenge, because we don't get that kind of counseling.
Yeah.
You get impressed with courses like philosophy. And you think, that would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
What is philosophy?
Yeah.
You hear that there are all these philosophers and until somebody says, okay, tell me what you're going to do with philosophy.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you're going to do with philosophy. So when I decided, when I wanted a change, I went to see a chap called Professor Takerambude, who was the Dean of Law, I think. I don't know what, I can't remember quite well. And he said, yeah, I'll take you for law. But you have to make an application or something like that. And I did it, and then I was told, no, you can't switch to law. Sometimes in life you have challenges that are not of your doing, not of yourself. My father was a registrar at the university.
Yeah.
So suddenly there were all these conversations around it. Yeah, just because his father is a registrar, he thinks he can choose what he wants, all that stuff that has nothing to do with reality.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So eventually I couldn't get into the law class. Then I decided I wanted to do BCom.
Yeah.
And then I found the BCom class full. And then somebody said, why don't you do economics? And in those days, we don't even know what economics, philosophy, whatever, is the same stuff,
Yeah.
So then somebody says, no, it's a useful thing. You can do economic planning. You can do all sorts of things around the economy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in economics.
Yeah.
So obviously in the first 2 years, you do different courses.
Yeah.
From all sorts of, you do political science, you do accounting, you do whatever, until they say you have a choice of choosing. A lot of times there were double majors. I don't know why people did double majors. Don't I let double major, you double into this, you double into this. I said, no, I want to do economics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then they said, okay, you can continue with economics. And then, so we started doing funny things like econometrics and all the other things that now made you an economist.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I still had no clue, you won't believe in the final year, I had no idea what I was going to do. But during those years also, I was a very avid sportsman.
Yeah.
I love sports. I think if I was born in this era, I would have probably taken sports as a career.
Is that where the softball comes in?
Yeah, I love sports more than...
How good were you, though? I mean, we see, you're a patron, highly, softball conversations. How good were you? First of all, let's start with the position.
It's always difficult to say how good you were.
Yeah.
But I would hit a home run once in a while.
Yeah.
I think if you looked at the team, I was more likely to hit a home run than other people.
Yeah.
I wasn't fast, so home runs helped.
Yeah.
I wasn't fast between bases.
Yeah.
Although I did like stealing a base once in a while.
No doubt.
And one of my team players once said to me, stealing bases is not about speed.
Yeah.
It's about catching people when they're least expecting you to steal it.
Yeah.
And that's how I stole bases.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I would pretend that I have no chance of stealing, and suddenly I'm gone.
Okay.
And so because you know you don't have speed, you don't do it often.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll always be out.
No doubt.
Yeah. And many times because I hit long,
Yeah.
I would hit extra bases anyway.
Yeah.
I'd give my team extra bases anyway.
Definitely.
You know what is interesting is that, like every other child, my first sport was football.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really good at football.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had. So I tried my best at football, but I knew I wasn't really good.
Yeah.
But the camel that, whatever they call it, that broke the camel's back, the egg that broke the camel's back, Harira from Wanikum Ataspe. When we got there, we were then asked to Rona, we were given shovels to clear the grass. I agree, when you come in January, the grass is this tall.
Yes, sir.
So we asked to clear the grass. I said, no, I'm not going to do this. So when I was a kid, my parents were teaching go. At some point, my mother was also teaching go teacher training. So both my parents were also love sports.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mother would coach netball, volleyball, tennis.
Yeah.
And I used to go out and play.
Yeah.
All those sports. I played netball.
Yeah. Okay.
With the ladies at TTC. I played tennis. I played volleyball. So when when I didn't like what was happening at Form 1 soccer, I then went to play volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got into the volleyball team because I knew what to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't like a normal Form 1 who didn't know, who had never seen the game.
Yeah.
So I immediately got into the team. But there was a Zimbabwean guy who used to stand there with a stick. And every time you spiked the ball into the net, he would hit you.
Yes.
So I said goodbye.
Yeah.
And I went and played tennis.
Okay.
Because I was not... if you're going to learn how to spike, you're going to hit balls into the net.
Definitely. So
you're going to hit balls out of the court. So if there's a disincentive to take a chance...
Yeah. Why even bother?
Yeah. So I went and played tennis for a while. Matters Bay didn't have tennis courts, so you had to go to Mopane Club.
Oh, okay.
We had to go and play at Mopane Club. But as with any kid, when the adults come, they kick you out of the court. So again, So at that point, I then moved to Gabs.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Gabs, I then went back to volleyball and tennis.
Yeah.
And I played both. So I played Konotwane, the Matlapani.
Okay.
And I also played volleyball for the GSS team until Form 5.
Awesome stuff.
So from Form 2, Form 3, Form 4,
yeah,
we were national champions of the senior competition, by the way.
Yeah.
Even though we were in junior secondary, we played in the senior competition.
Okay.
Lebo boys sebetela bo Moabi Talampe.
Yeah.
And the reason we got that good was that UB had a volleyball team that had no place to play.
Yeah.
They formed a team called Mafolofolo.
Yeah.
So they used to challenge us to play.
The one that still exists today, though.
Yes. Yeah. It was started by guys who were very good.
Those
guys were very good. For that generation. They didn't play it the way it's played today, but for that generation, we had never seen such skill.
Definitely.
So these guys used to play us, and when we started, they used to beat us 5-0.
Yeah.
One day we got a set, 4-1. We were so happy. You'd think we were the ones who won.
Yeah.
Until one day it was 3-2 in their favor.
Yeah.
Now we're encouraged.
Yeah, you're getting better.
Until we started beating them. That was it. We changed the game. We started beating them after that. That's how we became good at volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah, by playing these guys every weekend. And, they shared their knowledge. It's not like they came, played, and left. They would share their knowledge, and they would help us. And of course, as you grow, you also grow taller, so you're going to be able to jump and block them now.
Be able to spike as well.
And be able to spike as well.
Yeah.
And this is how I took up softball.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine played softball. And I went and watched him. And he was missing. Couldn't hit that ball to save his life. So I said to him, I don't understand how you missed this big ball.
Yeah.
Because I also played tennis, remember?
Yeah.
So he says to me, but the difference is tennis is a big wide racket. How
Yeah.
can you miss it? I said, no, then I'll hit this thing with this
Yeah.
little club of yours. I mean, really? So I went there, took the club and hit the ball, and I was in the team the next weekend.
Whoa.
That's how I started. I couldn't catch, I couldn't do anything. They put me in the outfield. If you hit the ball at me, it went past.
It's like Berry Bonds, more baseball.
Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, you just hit them out the park.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the job.
Yeah, Barry Bonds is happy if he's just DH,
Yeah.
designated hitter.
Yeah.
If you put him on the field,
There's nothing else that's going to
but
happen.
over time, of course, you start improving your skill.
Yes, sir. I want to get into also while you're at UB, because like economics is that confusing for a lot of people where you won't even know where you're going to end up. How then were you able to choose a career path in all of that, mathematics, graphs? How do you then decide, okay, this is the job that I'm going to get into, which ultimately, gets you all the way to the top of the totem pole, as far as the Barclays Bank is concerned.
So you're into second semester, final year. Is the first time you start thinking about.
Span.
First, you start thinking about graduating.
Yeah.
So you start thinking about your grades.
Yeah.
Am I going to be called a pass, a 2-1, 2-2? Where am I going to be? And then secondly, where am I going to work?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the beauty of our time, not today,
Hey.
our time was that you didn't have to look for a job. You must remember that when we were working, there were a lot of expatriates in Botswana.
Yeah.
So the US Peace Corps was quite present. The UK sent expatriates. I think those were and then the Dutch and the Norwegians and other people.
Yeah.
So a lot of senior government jobs, people were breaking into them.
Yeah.
People like Bo Festus Mohai and that generation would be like level 1, tier 1, breaking into those jobs.
Yeah.
Hey,
The first Batswana to do
the first
certain
Batswana
jobs.
to come through.
Yeah.
So every time they're taking over from an expatriate. They're not taking over from another Botswana.
Yeah.
So there was a hunger and desire for Batswana to join the civil service. So there was no issue about whether you're going to get a job or not. The only issue was placement. Where are you going to be placed? And if you're a bit finicky, you sort of get into the space, when you want to work in Gaborone. Some people who had done... so one of the reasons I chose single major is I believe that it would land me in the Ministry of Finance, as opposed to people with the public administration and economics. Sometimes we used to look and say, maybe counseling, because there'd be economic planners in the councils, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Then, one day, I am passing through the Student Union Hall.
Yeah.
And I see an advert by the United Nations. And the United Nations says they want research fellows to go and work in the Delta for 2 years. Delta.
From Gabs?
Yeah, Delta. And then they will sponsor your master's degree. So after that, you will go and do your master's degree. And you must remember, when you go researcher, it means that they're looking for researchers, and researchers have to have master's PhD.
Yeah.
So basically a 2-year internship, and then you go and do your master's degree. But you're going to work. What was the attractiveness? They said they give you a company house and a company car.
Okay.
I was like, but company car.
More than Delta.
Yeah. But I found it attractive because then it also had this master's degree thing.
Yeah.
So I told my old man, I've seen this advert, I want to go. He's like, are you out of your mind? Do you understand where the delta is?
Hey, and I can imagine back then.
Yeah,
How,
this was real bush. Real,
oh my word.
I think all of Muzenda, you are like, my child is lost.
Yeah.
Gone forever.
So what type of research is this? What are you doing there?
I think it was, did I even care what kind of research it
There's
was?
a car, there's a house.
There's a car, there's a house,
There's
and some work and masters.
Yeah.
And then, so it wasn't really the content that attracted me.
Yeah.
And then while I was there, I then saw another advert from BDC, Botswana Development Corporation,
Yeah.
also saying it's looking for trainees to go and work there. So
Yeah.
it was the first time I heard of an organization called BDC. So
Yeah.
I said, who are these guys?
Yeah.
But to know there's some development corporation that develops businesses.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that sounds interesting. So I applied. They put an address in there, so I went and wrote a letter. But I had no clue at these people. There was no internet at the time. We couldn't Google stuff and find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so who works there? Do you know anybody who works there that I can ask? And anyway, you don't have a chance to ask. Then there was another advert for BMC. Le bone ba re ba batla motho ya no go BMC o to simolla ko Masakeng a o tswa ko Masakeng you go and do what and then o simolla o bua dikgomo. I'm like
Ba le mo lo batseng.
Lubatse. No, I said no, I don't think this one is. Fortunately, in no time BDC responded. Remember, we haven't written exams.
Yeah.
BDC responded, said come for an interview. Hey, so I then told my old man, hey, I have been called for an interview at BDC. So I knew at least he knew a bit about BDC. I said, okay, Mike, what do they do?
Yeah.
I don't know, they develop businesses that are development arm for government for economic development. Hey. Yeah, so you need to be sharp when you get there. You must not be korobel. So anyway, I went for the interview, did the interview. There were 6 of us. We did the interview. And then 2 of us were picked.
Okay.
Next day, we got a letter. You've been employed.
This is after you've done the Okavango stint.
No, I haven't been.
Now
No,
you're
that
just
one
looking.
No, that one, I get it, my old man discouraged me.
Hey,
but before
look for
I get it,
something
that was
else.
also going to be after school. So I never actually applied for Okavango.
yeah.
I applied for BDC.
For BDC
That was
instead.
the first one I applied for.
Yeah.
And that is the first one that gave me a call and interviewed me and gave me a job.
Wow.
So I never applied to anybody else
Yeah.
after that. Then I thought, wow, I have a job. So I do need to pass.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
then
life was good though. But at least you were passing. So this wasn't like you were just handed something. You had to pass.
I had to pass. So
Hey.
now back to academics. Hey, now I have to read, man. I have to read. I read. Anyway, then we wrote exams. After writing exams, I thought, so I have to wait until October. I get it, they published them around September. They published them.
August,
September. Publish August, September.
Yeah.
Get it. So we are going to sit around for nothing. BDC said, no, you can start work.
Yeah.
So in June, after a week after I finished my exams, I went and started work at BDC.
Wow.
Yeah. So
So what was it entailing? The work in there. What were you? What was the job like? What did you get to do when you got there?
So when we got to BDC, they said, right, your job is to evaluate business plans, business opportunities, to develop the business plan, and to determine the viability of the project, and if it's viable, to submit it to a board for approval, and then to execute the plan.
What would be the equal of your BDC like right now? Like a layer? Or
No. So the types of BDC is the type of business that you do in venture capital.
Yeah.
The type of business that you do in business development.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you think about venture capital,
Yeah.
okay, it's people who are sitting with money.
Yeah.
They're looking for business opportunities. They evaluate whether they can get a healthy return, whatever return they have set up as a benchmark, and they go in there and invest.
Yeah.
There are two things that you do with a venture capital. Either the business is successful, you want to buy into it and you run with it, or the business is not going through a great time, but you know with a good capital, good leadership, management, you can transform this business into a leading business. So that's what venture capitalists look for.
Yeah.
BDC is a type of venture capital business, but supported by government.
So Batswana have been encouraged to do business even as early as back then.
Yes.
So why does it seem like this is news? Why does it seem like making our own businesses is new? Everyone was just, because it was so easy to get employment, now guys all just jumped into civil service.
Look, I think it was easier to get a job than to start a business. First, you need capital.
Yeah.
Okay. So even with BDC, even though BDC will provide up to 75% capital, you still needed the 25% of your project. You needed the skills for the project. You needed the capability to run the business. People did start businesses even back then. But, remember that also back then, this was a very small economy. Yeah. It's a small economy today, but it's probably 10 times bigger than it was then.
Yeah.
So the types of businesses that we were doing were pioneers in each of those industries. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. BDC invested with Avis in a car rental business. Okay, the only people who could rent businesses at the time were corporates who could rent cars. Okay? Yeah. The rest of us, we found it too expensive, our earnings were low, etc., to rent a car. And there was no diversity. Now, because the market was also slow, it meant that the pricing was high. Because for Avis to make money, the pricing was high. Air Botswana was started by BDC. Okay, so BDC, we need an airline BDC. So basically what government would do is identify gaps in the economy for businesses. I get it, if you are going to have foreign investors invest, they ask you all sorts of things. So if you're setting up a mine, they say, where are we going to get the vehicles? Can we hire vehicles? Where are the hotels? Can we stay in hotels? How are we getting to Botswana? Where's the airline that gets us there?
And it's rural at this point. Huh?
Rural. The airport was what is part of UB today.
Okay. It's just all the way to the side.
That's where the airport was at the
time. Why don't we have pictures? We don't have a lot of people.
The pictures are there at the archives.
But why is like a lot of history that comes with, the urban migration and like also, young people now getting into business. Why don't we have these things close by?
How small Gaborone was then. Just think about this. Avani was Holiday Inn. Next to Avani was the golf club. Marapula was in the bush. You actually walked through or drove through bush. That whole area behind the hotel was bush. Okay? Ginger did not exist. Yeah. The breweries, which started as Prince Brau, was in the bush. They put it out there because they said the smoke and whatever is going to cause pollution. So they're going to put it out far away from everybody. And so, you tend to laugh about it because you're like, when we in the old days they said fuel stations couldn't be around residential areas because if these tanks explode, they're going to kill people. You see that is very different today. So if you went, I had a cousin who stayed in Caravan Hoapale, Le Marapu. You were no hitagimi buta the pala or the hit. I mean, they would be jumping away and running away from you. As I went to visit him.
This is what, 70?
This is 77, 78.
77, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. So this fastest growing economy thing is real.
No, it's real.
Like, that quickly.
The airport was behind UB. The stadium was where it is.
I've heard someone tell me that and I just, rubbed it off. Or okay, all right. But I just couldn't imagine it, because I think when some of us woke up to the Gaborone that has tarred roads, that has, Gaborone San, that has all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean...
so BDC was major component in the business development of these things.
BDC was a major component in developing hotels, in developing a lot of infrastructural businesses, and in supporting people to set up factories and things like that. That's basically what we did.
Yeah.
And also in providing factory shells. Botswana only now is a secondary market developing in property. So if you wanted an office, you built it. You couldn't find an office and occupy it. If a company wanted to start, they had to build in order to have premises. So all of that BDC was involved with. I guess if people have a criticism of BDC could do things on its own. It didn't need to have other investors, or it could support an investor, whether domestic or foreign, and it did both. Okay. But at the time also, you then have situations where people ordinarily a narrative that how Botswana and you do business with BDC, eventually they buy you out, because it happened to one or two people. But this was a question, because I said you needed 25%, because of the citizen consortiums didn't have enough money. You fit the pocket rather than the project.
Okay.
So a project needs 10 million in reality, but it's funded by 5 million. Because when your 25 only meets 5 million. I get it. You only have 1 million pula to put in. So we say, okay, let's start small. But if you're not, sometimes the problem is that you don't have the economies of scale to make it a sustainable business. So then we say, okay, we have to reinvest. You don't have the money. You have not received dividends from the project because the project has not been profitable.
This sounds like CEDA.
Yeah. So
why does it sound a little bit like CEDA?
Well, the economics hasn't changed. If you don't fund a project properly from the outset, you are going to have collapse. But
what about some of the people who were judging your mechanics within the financiers, the company? Don't they take some of the blame for not realizing that you are not able to sustain something like this?
No, look, I think that, sometimes you say, I'll give you an example. So if you say you want to go into the wheel business, so wheelike, the hub and the tire, I get it. So we then say, Chief, why don't you make tires first, because how namati? And then you will move into the wheels space. You'll move into the hub space later on. Okay, so one of two things happens. So you start and you make these tires, but guys need both. So they're going to come to you and say, okay, we'll buy the tires, but we need the hub. So if they go and buy the hubs in South Africa, chances are he's also going to buy the tire there. I get it. So he gets his rim there, he gets his hubs, whatever it is, and he brings them back. So you're not generating sufficient sales to then create that reinvestment that we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
I get it. Then we say, we made a mistake. We must now get the rims and the hubs and whatever. So now you have to reinvest. I get it. You have to put more capital in for the guy. Now when I, as an investor who had 20%, you don't have the capital. So it means that if I put in the capital, I'm going to water down your percentage. Not the money you put in, but your percentage. So if you're 20%, you could end up down to 10. And so if we keep reinvesting, and then we say we need a factory, the factory needs to be bigger, we need more space, we need to do this. Sometimes out of success. Remember, sometimes if you start small and actually the business is doing well, then you need to reinvest to increase the space, you need to reinvest to buy more equipment. And then we're not how namati. So then the other shareholder says, so we then say to you, go and find another shareholder, to help you.
Yeah.
So you go find another shareholder who comes and helps you. But it doesn't change your life.
Yeah.
That 1 million now is no longer 20%, it's now 10%. Yeah. Eventually, you can find yourself down to 5%. What does that affect? It affects two things. First, it affects your voice. At 20%, you have more of a voice than at 5%.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes at 5%, now you become a bit of a nuisance. The other guys say, Chief, why don't we just give you your million back?
Yeah.
So those are some of the challenges that the lack of capital, the reason why I know about the lack of capital in the past, those are the issues.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's why we then moved into to start in Bosida.
Yeah.
Bosida were now to provide grant and equity capital.
Yeah.
Okay?
You don't have to pay the money back, but they have a share in your business.
Well, basically, I get you know how the staggered rates. I see that at a certain point you pay sub-economic rates until when you get to a certain size, you pay closer to economic rates.
Yeah.
The problem with that kind of subsidies is that it doesn't reflect the true cost of the capital. Okay? And because it doesn't reflect the true cost of capital, now you undermine the true cost of capital. Okay? Whereas you will find that the behavior of people who go to commercial banks is very different because they are charged the true cost of capital. And they know there's a demand on them to make that payment, or else whatever asset they've built, etc., will go.
Will go as well.
And also, because the banks charge a true cost of capital, the banks are what Batswana call risk averse. In other words, they shift as much of the risk to you as possible, while making sure that they're well covered.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, that's been some of the challenge in Botswana's economic development. Because the banks cover themselves so well, ultimately you must get into the space where you say, are the banks taking enough risk to transform the economy? Yeah.
I think you believe because we don't have a lot of time with us today. You managed to give us a little bit of it. So I wanna.
I promise you, I'll be back for another.
Please, you better come back for another one because your next meeting, Tata, is not one you can be late for. I'm gonna fast forward you a little bit because you were one of the first, the second actually, a managing director of an international bank in Botswana from 2003 to 2010. What was the challenge for you, having been one of the first to actually sit in that position? Because I hear there was someone before you, Duncan
Mlazi. Duncan Mlazi was the first MD of Barclays.
Of Barclays Bank of Botswana.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're missing a lot of stuff about how you got in there as well. I'm happy you talked about BDC so that we can at least have an idea or business was being cultivated even back in the day.
Yeah.
This is nothing new here.
Yeah.
When you get into Barclays, how do you end up as managing director, especially also as a young Botswana? You guys can, as young Botswana, could lead these institutions.
I think, look, I go back to BDC. I think BDC was an excellent foundation from a learning point of view. I was at BDC for 7 years.
Yes, sir.
And in that period, I learned quite a lot because you do diverse businesses. The beauty about BDC is today, somebody wants to do a laundromat, so you evaluate what a laundromat does. Tomorrow it's a hotel, tomorrow it's a wax factory, tomorrow it's a motor factory. So it gives you a different perspective.
Yeah.
And you then learn where there are certain core threads that go through every business in terms of what you need to see in a business to be capable of a business. So it's very clear you need capital.
Yeah.
You need people, good people. You need resources. You need the infrastructure that you need. And you need to take care of your customers.
Yeah.
That is the thread.
Yeah.
You need to take care of the people that work for you, and you need to take care of your customers.
Yes, sir.
Because your customers are your money. Okay? So when I left BDC, the reason I left BDC was to go into management personally.
Yeah.
To say, well, I now want, the problem with being at BDC is you don't lock the doors, you don't pay the electricity. How is it? There's somebody who takes care of all of that. When you come into the office, if there's no coffee, well, oh man, why is there no coffee?
Yeah.
Now, when you start, so I went to a small organization called Tswelelo, which was also shareholded by BDC, NDB, and some Dutch organization. And Tswelelo was doing small business support, so like lending to small businesses, etc., etc. So I went there because I wanted management, to learn management. So lock the doors, pay the bills, give leave. Give leave.
Hire fire.
Decide paying people's salaries. Blah. But Tswelelo was broke when I got there. It was literally broke. So I worked at Tswelelo for a year. And then at that point, I then moved to what is now BIFM. So I was one of the first 2 people to work for BIFM.
Okay.
I was a pioneer of BIFM. One day we'll talk about how BIFM was formed.
Yes, sir.
Because I want to get to how I ended up at the bank.
Yes, sir.
So I did asset management with BIFM until I decided to move to an organization called ULC. ULC, there were 2, what do you call financial services companies in Botswana, providing leasing finance. 2. One was the Financial Services Company of Botswana, and the other was ULC.
Okay.
Financial Services Company was then acquired by FNB, and it became the West Bank of FNB. Okay. ULC is now what is today Access Bank.
So how were people doing their banking then with those entities?
So basically you banked with, remember in the old days there were 2 banks, Barclays and Standard Chartered. And they sort of had this protection where the market is too small for more than 2 banks. So they basically divvied up the country between the 2 of them. Okay. But over time, I think as more banks expressed an interest in coming to Botswana, Central Bank then decided the opportunity does exist to open up the market a bit. So a bank called Union Bank got a license. There's another bank called Greenlays that got a license. If you remember, there was a bank called Bank of Credit and Commerce that also got a license. There was a bank called Zim Bank that got a license. These are small banks.
Were any of them Batswana owned?
No, they're all foreign owned.
Yeah.
And they started off very small. They opened up one office bank kind of thing.
Yeah.
They were all looking at the corporate business. I think many of them tried to create a connection with, like BCC came from India. So it was trying to create a link between themselves and the Indian market here. In fact, it was that bias that's what it was doing. Zim Bank was banking Zimbabweans more than anything else. So Union Bank, Greenlays, I think came from, somewhere in Asia. But they were small banks, and they were not particularly doing well. So I think, now those banks were doing what is called general lending, generic lending. So Financial Services Company was set up by Botswana corporates, including BDC, to do leasing, asset leasing. So if you want to buy a car, if you want to buy machines for your factory, you went to them. And all they wanted was to take the equipment and say to you, we'll pay 80% of the car. You pay 20%. You pay 20% of the machine, we'll pay 80%. We'll take the machine or the car as security, and you pay us every month until you own that thing. So that's the business we were in at ULC. Okay, ULC came from Zimbabwe. So I was at ULC for a while. I rose to the position of deputy general manager. General manager was the CEO there. And while I was there, the job of general manager of NDB came up. At the time, NDB had just gone through rescue. If you remember the old tractor days, and stuff like that, NDB was bankrupt. So government refinanced it, re-altered its mandate and got some Irish to come and turn it around, and then they got some South African guy from ABSA to come and run it.
Yeah.
And then they wanted a citizen to take it up again. So I was approached for, are you not interested in this? I applied, I was interviewed, and then I became general manager of NDB. Okay. NDB.
What is the mandate of NDB though?
So NDB was a mix, agriculture bank, commercial bank, but the bulk of its assets were agricultural.
Agriculture, yeah.
But it's a bit of a fake, because the bulk of its assets were civil servants who come and borrow money to buy cattle, tractors, but they pay with their salaries. So the risk was not on the agriculture sector, the risk was on payroll. Yeah.
And
do they really care enough about what they've bought to pay? And NDB had developed a behavior back then of being able to write off loans for the flimsiest of reasons. So people had got into this groove of borrowing and not paying, knowing whether there'll be a write-off. So the character change that we made for NDB was, no, it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah.
You're going to pay, and this place is going to become viable.
So that's how all the tractors disappeared.
That's how. But believe you me, they disappeared long before I came.
No, let me go, because things were being written off when people couldn't pay.
Yeah. So it was now when President Mogai was finance minister, he said enough of this.
Yeah.
Go and collect all that. That NDB is bankrupt, but people are holding its assets and money. Go and take them, sell them, and pay back NDB. So it was a bit of a crisis in the country at the time.
But was it because like the country had a lot of money coming in back then? Like now things like that could just money was just being thrown.
It was also a bit of a political tool.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a bit of a political tool. You write off the debt, the people love you.
You keep it moving like nothing happened.
Absolutely.
But still,
then at some point, I was approached because Metropolitan Life, which was a small South African company selling life insurance, wanted a citizen MD. They had also gone through the regulator in Botswana saying, you can't run this thing like it's a branch from South Africa. You have to set up management here, set up a local office, managing director, etc. So they did. They moved the office from Rustenburg. At the time, the office was in Rustenburg.
Yeah.
They moved it from Rustenburg to Gaborone, and then they started looking for an MD. So they sniffed me out. I went for interviews, and then they appointed me managing director, the first citizen managing director of Metropolitan Life.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, I had never been running life insurance in my life. So I had to quickly learn the ropes of life insurance. And in some ways, look, finance has two sides, okay, of a balance sheet, debit, credit. Yeah. And whatever business you are in is in either one of those two.
Yeah.
Okay. So life insurance is obviously about providing long-term security for people. So you pay today, hoping for a big payout one day, but you may also die in the interim, so there's a payout. So the life of a life insurance company is to estimate how many of its people will die when, and try and make money while doing that.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if your relative dies and is insured for 5 million, and they tell you they don't have the money to pay,
that's another story.
Yeah, everybody will stop paying their premiums. Yeah. So it's important that that credibility stays. So if you look at the balance sheet of a life company, you'll find that there's huge reserves. Yeah. Those reserves sit there because of the lives they've insured.
Anything can happen.
Yeah. Then while I was at ULC, again, I was headhunted by Barclays. I'm just sitting there one day and I get a phone call. We'd like to meet with you. And as it turns out, I said, "Who are you?" They said, we are one of the banks, but we don't want to tell you which bank.
Yeah.
Are you happy to come and see us on Saturday morning?" Which I did. And then they said they're interested in me, but I have to go through interviews. I agreed to do that. They interviewed me. One of the most grilling interviews ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still tell people that I had an interview for 4 hours.
What are you talking about?
Oh.
Your hobbies?
Oh, believe you me, it was one of the most intense.
Yeah.
And even at the end, I think it would probably have gone longer if the guys were not flying out that evening.
But then I want to ask about more leadership, more Botswana, more when it comes to these positions, because we can't dwell too much on a lot of these issues because we don't have a lot of time. I want to ask about if because we haven't seen a lot of Batswana managing directors and CEOs that much for a while. There's people who keep saying that if there is one, they're usually just used as a proxy. There's other people who are here in the country who are from those, to come and overlook the CEOs and the general managers, and they're not really running the ship. So I want you to talk to that. Is that the case?
I think there's some.
But was that even the case with you at the time?
There's some truth to it. I made it very clear when I set up at Barclays that if that's the model, then I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I think at the time, that was the model with the previous MD. There's something they call the matrix system. Yeah, whenever you hear the word matrix, we have a matrix management model. It means that you are being run from Dubai or from Johannesburg or from London or wherever. So a lot of the models in the banks then, I haven't familiarized myself with the models today.
Yeah.
But in the banks then, your personal banking business was also a profit center across the bank.
Yeah.
So. And so you would have a head of that center sitting at the head office, whether it's in London or Dubai or Singapore. And so would be given responsibility for personal banking throughout, corporate banking throughout, treasury throughout, in all domains, all countries. And so would appoint people to oversee the countries, for instance. Which in my view was not necessary. It was a waste of money. It was top heavy and it ate into profit. Okay? Because what then happens is then there's a lot of recharges because you have to pay for the structure. So whatever money you make, you must now share it. It's logical. If you're going to make money and there's a structure somewhere that is also supporting your business, then you must pay for that structure.
Yeah.
It's just logical.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did when I got to Barclays, it wasn't just my business, but we changed that model. First, because it was expensive, but secondly, because it didn't empower people in country. When you talk to your treasurer, you find that your treasurer is not empowered. Can't make a decision. You and him can't make a decision. And so I said, no, we can't. I have a customer here we're supposed to make a decision about. I can't be waiting for a guy in Dubai or London or Johannesburg to make those decisions. But fortunately, I think at the time that I joined the bank had also given up on that model. Barclays itself had given up on that model because it wasn't yielding the results. The businesses were, when I joined Barclays, its profitability was heading downwards. It was the worst bank in the market in terms of customer service. Customers were all telling me, I don't know why I'm still with this bank. It was quite painful actually being managing director of the bank in 2003. Because there were a lot of people flying out, going to F&B, going to other banks. It was at the height of we, as an international bank and Standard Chartered, were the only ones implementing KYC at the time.
Yeah.
So people were like, know your customer. I've been your customer for 30 years. Only now you want to know me?
Yeah, these days, every month, KYC.
And also, apart from that, you're stopping me from transacting because you say you don't know me.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a challenge.
Or people jumped ship because of that.
Yeah,
It was like,
so I mean, one of the things I said to Central Bank is that, look, you can't have 2 domains in the same country. You need to have one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but just back to the issue of citizen CEOs. One of the things that I valued about the Barclays interview is that it focuses on you as a leader.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're looking at character, they're looking at attributes, your level of decisiveness, your level of ability to interact with people, the ability to lead people, your ability to set out a clear vision, your ability to execute that vision, your ability to focus on profitability, etc. Okay. Yeah. But you must also remember that when you're a CEO, you work through people. And so one of the things that you need to be very confident about is also finding excellent people. If you are fearful of excellent people, you'll never be successful.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, I used to say to my leadership team, your subordinates must scare you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They must scare you. If they don't scare you, you don't have the right guy.
Yeah.
If you don't think this guy can take, we used to do what is called talent review.
Yeah.
And talent review, one of the things we would decide is, are you ready now for my position?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Are you ready now? And that's where we would drive you, to be ready now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'll give it to you now,
Yeah.
but are you ready now?
Yeah.
Okay? If you are ready in 2 years, then we have to make you ready now.
Yeah.
If we think you are ready. So there was no benefit in me saying, no, this guy is not ready. Because it also means that I'm not a great leader. I'm not coaching you.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
I'm hoarding everything. So CEOs have to have the confidence to get great teams. It's like just back to our Liverpool thing.
Yeah.
You're going to win because you have the best team.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Not the most expensive players, the best team.
The best team, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And as a coach, you must know that when I've given these guys the assignment to play, I must watch them play and I must be like, wow.
Yeah.
Even they must surprise you. You must go, wow.
Yeah.
Look at this team.
Look at my guys.
And so in life, I think that's what makes you a successful leader.
Yeah.
Is the ability to look at your team and say, wow, these people amaze me every day. And so that's the kind of team you have to build, number one. Number two is that you have to love working with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to love working with people. You have to love, you know what good people do?
Yeah.
They challenge.
Yeah.
They challenge everything. The guy comes and says, why are we sitting on sofas? Why are we not sitting at the bar?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And if you're emotional about the sofa, you've lost it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But it also doesn't mean, because you are my talent, yes.
Yeah.
No, they must justify.
Yeah.
They must fight. They must fight their cause.
Yes, sir.
But they must also know that they're fighting a cause not against an obstinate guy, but a guy who will challenge them to really think hard.
Yeah.
And to, because it's easy. Let me tell you something. Banks have money, and they spend money. And one of the things I had to do when I got to the bank is say, no, we're not going to spend money. We're going to use this money effectively, efficiently, and we're going to create value with it. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, just to give you an example, one time the guys wanted to set up. We were setting up our first SMS alerts. Yeah. Long after FNB did it. Yeah. And
throw that one in there.
Yeah, that's another story for another day about how we came in that late in the market.
Yes, sir.
But So we're excited. We're ready to roll this thing out. And the marketing team comes and says, we're going to have a big party. We're going to spend 300,000 on, we're going to invite PSs, we're going to invite ministers, we're going to invite...
To launch the SMS alert.
Yeah, so I asked them, so how many of these people are going to use SMS alerts? How many? They said, no, we're creating... I said, no, that's not how you create awareness. I'll give you the 300,000, okay? So that you go sit at Riverwalk and you say to the guy, I want to show you. Oh, it wasn't just SMS alert, it was transactions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you $10. Give me your phone. I'm going to load this app for you. And I'm going to transfer $10 to your account. Okay? So you can use it to buy airtime or whatever.
Whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah. I said, you'll get more value. First, you've loaded the app on the guy's phone. Now he's got the app.
Yeah.
Well, secondly, you've given him $10. Thirdly, he's given you his time.
Yeah.
For you to understand, for him to understand the application. Whether he uses the application or not, you've given yourself the best chance to acquire a customer from this. Yeah. The 300,000 to go drink wine and whatever and give speeches is not going to make us money.
No doubt.
So I said no. Okay, and of course the big issue becomes, why do you say no? Because these people are committed to these ideas. They've spent time putting this together
and slides,
and they genuinely believe.
Yes, sir.
They genuinely believe in the cause.
Yeah.
Okay, they genuinely believe in the argument. So the answer is not no. You're not going to do that. I'm the boss. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we then sit down and we talk about this.
What about exactly the problem? Yeah.
And I tell them why I think my idea is better.
No doubt.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel that completely. With all the money that you're talking about, though, that banks have, what do you think? How do you think local banks can currently support SMMEs in Botswana? Because it's almost impossible when you have like small businesses to try and get a loan from them. Do you think there's a way that they could be able to help people with small businesses?
I think banks are too transaction focused than development focused. And what I mean about that is that they're happy to work with a customer who's flourishing. They're not entirely happy. They're not built to work with somebody who is developing. It scares them. But part of it is that I don't think they're investing sufficiently in the skills of their own people.
Yeah.
I think they need to develop the skills of their own people and give them the many of the banks have globalized risk management. Many of them.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that risk management is run as a separate function and it's run from the top.
Okay.
And I know that as MD, I used to fight what I called being risk adverse rather than being risk conscious. There's a big difference between risk aversity and being risk conscious. Okay? Risk conscious means I'm not going to just listen to your story and buy into it. I think Kapele Rona, as people who want to do businesses, we also think that our passion is enough to, I want to start this business, I want to make chairs. How Mozart, where's the market? Hana stories are market there. Where are you going to get raw materials? Hana story. What is your total input cost? They don't have it. How much are you going to sell for? So that we also have to train, Bolia are meant to train entrepreneurs. I don't know how far we go in the real development of entrepreneurs. One of the things that both Canada and US used to do is they would take retired business people, leaders in business, etc., and they would support the hand-holding of small businesses to help them through these stages. Because I've worked with small business, and I know that small business does not spend enough time on the financial prudence of their decisions.
I get about to duel after 90 days.
That's part of it. But how many of you forecast that you'll be paid after 90 days?
is we assume that it will be. Sometimes it's not even 90 days. I mean, just
No,
last
I
year,
agree.
so Rona imagine or even our payments were
Even
behind
more
that.
delayed. But
Yeah.
many of the businesses do not even do the 90 days.
Yeah,
They don't even do the 90 days. 90 days means that you're going to have capital that is only meant to support your production for 90 days. Okay? Financial services businesses, are they happy to give you money for 90 days that is over and above your requirements?
Nah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So if your monthly production of whatever it is that you do is 100,000 pula, I will say to you today that you need 500,000. So you need to fund 5 months of zero revenue in your capital. And because we don't have sufficient capital, that's not how we start businesses.
Yeah.
We start businesses undercapitalized. Okay? And then you pray people pay you on time. And then if Big Brother is who we support, then you are in big trouble. Because Big Brother doesn't care.
Yeah.
Even right down to employee level, they don't have the consciousness of the impact they have on businesses.
Yeah.
So I face it more and more now today as a private businessman than ever before.
Yeah.
And some of the choices I make about who to supply and who not to supply is number of days it's going to take me to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
I feel that.
yeah, I mean, if I'm going to give you goods worth 5,000 pula and it's going to take me 45 days to get the money, come on, let's calculate the interest. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I have to look for alternative markets for small stuff.
Yeah.
Because the only way I'm going to sustain that business is on a cash basis. Because I give out fuel, what happens? It has to be cash. I don't know how I'm fuel. I get if you
I'm rushing through these questions because we got to get to the gambling. Just recently, you were the CEO of the gambling authority. Your contract came to a close, or you just walked away, or
no, my contract ended.
Your contract ended. Did you want to finish? Or did you have more? Did you want to renew, or your time there was done?
Well, technically I turned 60, so.
Oh no!
Technically I turned 60. So.
Yeah, my mom is a year older than you.
When you reach those ages, it's not about whether you want to renew. It's whether people want to apply the law or not apply the law.
But you feel you can work, though.
Of course.
That must be messed up, though.
Not really. I had given them 7 years of my life.
You started with it, pretty much.
Yeah, no.
Set it all up.
I generally believe, 7 years is a good time in a position.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even if I guess the older you get, there's less ability to move around. But 7 years is a good time.
It's a good time.
You know, you implement. You know how enthusiastic you are to implement your ideas at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so over time, I challenge you to say, over time, the utility value of a person over 7 years drops.
Yeah.
Not because they wanted to drop, but I mean, how many times can you reinvent yourself?
Yeah.
You understand? And if you are building a great leadership team, like I said, you will have people that can move the organization forward in a different direction. They have their own ideas. They can create better value. They can escalate value. They can come up with new ideas. Yeah. Sometimes they implement thank God. And they're ready to implement them. And they either succeed or they don't.
I want to talk about the authority. Do you feel that the gambling industry in Botswana has evolved ever since the during your time, let's say, at the gambling authority?
Gambling is one of the fastest growing businesses in the world.
Yeah, we need it for podcasting. This is why also we want to get some answers, because
it's the fastest growing industry in the world.
Yeah.
Sports betting is the fastest growing industry in the world. It's actually out of control.
Yeah.
The challenge of a regulator is to make sure that it's done responsibly. It's done in a manner that doesn't result in over-gambling, that children don't get access. I get a moody devising. That children don't get access to it, and that you gamble responsibly.
Okay.
Because, Sky, you can spend all your money on gambling.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah,
you can. And people think that sports betting is different from casinos. It's not.
Yeah.
The lottery is not different from casinos. Yeah. The more you see, the allure of gambling is two. We tried in our messages to communicate that gambling is entertainment, and we mean it.
Yeah.
It's the minute you move it away from the entertainment. You know, it's like me and you go watch soccer.
Yeah.
Liverpool, Arsenal,
Yeah.
and people find us beating one another up.
Yeah.
It's no longer entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
something
now,
else
We've
now.
now moved it into something else.
Yeah.
Okay, but if we can go and watch it as friends, and you win and you rip me away, and I feel depressed that night.
Yeah.
I can bet you, if we're friends, you're the first guy to call me tomorrow and say, "How are you doing?" Yeah, you understand? And we move on.
Yeah.
Because we know that tomorrow I'm the one winning.
Yeah.
So gambling should be that way. Okay, it should be that when you're playing sports betting, and you're watching a game, it's fun to say who's going to score first. Okay, it's fun to say, how many yellow cards are going to be given in this match? Is there going to be a red card?
Yeah, how many saves?
How
stuff
many
like that.
goalkeeper saves? In fact, the in-game betting is apparently more popular than betting on who's going to win or lose.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, because it's a big,
because
big thing.
Winning and losing is easy.
Yeah.
You know, one winner 4-2. So all of us, we put 4-2. Finish. I get.
Yeah.
And we tend to do it based on our clubs. Yeah. It's when you are now told, is when you now get into the in-game betting, that the first penalty, the first free kick, the first yellow card, how many additional minutes are going to be done before at halftime, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of in-betting where you put 1 pooler, 2 pooler, 3 pooler, because you have a limited amount of money that you decide. Let's say you decide every weekend I'm going to use 100 pooler to bet.
Yeah.
Okay, so $20 for who's going to win, and then my 2 pooler, my 1 pooler. When you are done, you've won some, you've lost some, you're happy.
Yeah.
You understand? It's when you suddenly start thinking, you know, if I hadn't put 100 to win that 5,000, if I had put 1,000, it would have been 500,000. You see, when you start getting into that zone, that is where the problem starts. When people think they can make money out of this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. The casinos are profitable. The sports betting houses are profitable.
Yeah.
So not all the players are going to be profitable.
Yeah.
You understand?
I feel that. Let's get a little bit into the national lottery, since you mentioned it also. It's been a hot topic for a couple of years now. What are the root causes of the controversy? You see, I'm not quoting any newspaper articles or who was the second bidder, who's supposed to have won it. You know, we want this thing. Where is it? Where do you think it is? Because you are not in the corridors anymore.
I think the whole country wants this thing. Look, the process that we had gone through had come to its end. Okay, so in fact, an award has been made by the Gambling Authority a while back.
Yeah.
And what was required was the minister to ratify that decision.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Can we confirm ahead?
Yes, to ratify. That's what the act says.
Okay.
That the minister must ratify the decision. And that's where it's been since.
Oh, no.
Yeah. You know, your guess is as good as mine. That's where it's been since.
Who's the new minister, gent?
You know that there were court cases and things like that.
Yeah.
That obviously affect decisions.
Yes, sir.
We had awarded to the preferred bidder.
Yes, sir.
the preferred bidder was not able to meet the conditions that they themselves had set, actually.
No, it's
And so, after giving them an opportunity to remedy and being unable to do so, we went for the reserve bidder. But what is funny is that the reserve bidder had actually started a process to sue us. So when we awarded it to the reserve bidder, they then withdrew their threat to sue. And the preferred bidder then decided they wanted to sue. But what was also interesting with the preferred bidder is that it did not appear to be a decision of the preferred bidder. In other words, the consortium in itself. It looked like the consortium in itself was fragmented. And so, but court action does delay stuff. It does delay stuff. If I was the minister, I'd have taken a different attitude towards that court action, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
In other words, I feel that I would still have done the rectification I needed to do.
Yeah.
And still allowed the courts to then ventilate this issue and decide what they wanted to do. But if you create delay on the administrative side as well as create delay on the legal side, then I don't know who you want to blame. So I feel sad for the people that won, because what do you do?
It's been years now.
What do you do? They have put guarantees, financial guarantees.
Yeah.
That money they could have used elsewhere.
Yeah.
There are citizens involved whose lives are on hold because they don't know whether they are coming or going. I do hope that with the new government it can now be put to rest.
Yeah.
It's important to say yay or nay. You know, I think it's important to say yay or nay, because then people know what to do next.
Stop playing in the gray area.
But I think it's not a good example for governance in the country. Yeah.
And I think in closing, because we gotta shut it down, I'm reaching into more of your time here. The GDP of the country, like how effectively would a thriving gambling community in Botswana help with the GDP? Like, is it something that would be significant to your GDP?
I think the issue is that do you have a culture for gambling? Yeah, when I also had the culture for gambling. Yeah. When I lay a culture for gambling.
Yeah.
And there are those that don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the jury is out on Botswana.
Yeah.
Whether we have a culture for gambling.
Yeah.
Number two, the level of disposable income must support it.
Okay.
So I would not be a supporter of a huge amount of gambling opportunity available in economies and a lot of disposable income. You know, I mean, let's take airtime, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay. That industry just went through the roof.
Yeah.
Okay. And if one uses that as a proxy, one would say there are opportunities in gambling.
Yeah.
But gambling is also becoming more and more of a technology game. In other words, it's not going to employ a huge number of people. Okay? And so one has then to be careful about what impact it has on the economy. Yes, from a revenue point of view, it can give you taxes. So the country would benefit from generating taxes. Some people have said, you know, it's like I don't want to say that the same.
Yes.
But it's like an economy that says, you know what, matekwane ajua anyway. So license it and we'll regulate it. And so it depends to a large extent what you want to open up,
yeah,
and to what extent you want to you have the ability to control it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the ability to control it, you should never allow stuff like gambling to just become a big part of our lives.
Yeah.
You must remember, when you talk about limited payout machines, most of the time,
Yeah.
what does it mean? It means that the people that are in the bar are not sober when they gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only fortunate thing about limited payout machines is it only takes a small amount of money. You hide them a 100 pool. It takes small. So you limit the person's ability to throw in a lot of money in there.
No.
So that's the counterbalance of it.
Yeah.
But you have similarly, if you have casinos around the country,
Yeah.
if we suddenly open casinos everywhere in the country, unfortunately, the people that have money, it's okay.
Yeah.
If he loses 5,000, 10,000, but he's making 100,000 a week, it's fine.
Yeah.
But we also know of stories of people who make 100,000 a week who've gone broke out of gambling.
Yeah.
So one of the important parts of the Gambling Authority's mandate is regulating over-gambling.
Yeah.
And you can only regulate it through the very entities that offer gambling.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they must also take a responsibility to say, you know what, I'm going to help my customers stay on the good side of life. Because even from that perspective, if I'm gambling and I get broke, what happens? I can no longer gamble.
I can never come back. Yeah.
Yeah, they've killed me. They've killed a customer. So whereas if they allow me to gamble 500 pula a month,
Yeah.
then I'm there for life.
Yeah.
So they also have a responsibility to manage this.
Yes, sir.
But the Gambling Authority's responsibility is not just to offer the opportunities to entrepreneurs to sell gambling to the public, but they also have a responsibility to regulate people's attractiveness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of like the cigarettes thing.
Yeah.
It's like-
there's a word we use, do not overstimulate
Yeah.
the latent desire
Yeah.
in people
Yeah.
to gamble. And you start saying, but
Gamble,
you
gamble,
can make
gamble.
money. Yeah, so one of the things you regulate is advertising in gambling, so that it doesn't pull you from here into the casino. It should not pull you when you're watching a game into now you are the only guy who's not gambling.
But it looks like it's doing that right now.
No, I think the challenge now that we have,
Especially in the African channels.
no, the channel problem that we have, I was going to say to you, is internationalization. Because you see now what is happening. You remember the fight, BTA, it came beat Bokra with DSTV.
Yeah, Bokra, yes, sir.
That is the challenge because, one time I was sitting in my office and a guy phoned from Japan. I don't even know whether he's a genuine guy or a crook. But phoned from Japan and said he wanted to sell gambling into Botswana from Japan.
So what type of gambling?
No, I could online.
Online bank. Okay,
Yeah,
online
so I said no.
gambling.
No, you can't.
Eh,
Because I have no way of managing him except to block his IP if he does not. I didn't have IP blocking capability. I talked to Bokra, so I said no.
yeah.
Okay, but the reality is that each of these entities that we've licensed, their boxes are not sitting here. Their boxes are sitting in Eastern Europe and some other places. They will change them so that they can accept local currency. They'll create a bin within the system so that they can generate the revenue. They have to bank the revenue in a bank in Botswana. Yes, all of that will happen.
Yeah.
But the core platform is not resident here. Okay? Even if they put a server room and they put equipment in there, you must just know it's replicating something that's happening somewhere else. So regulation is becoming more and more complex. So only Bokra will regulate the internet. My good friend, who's also your friend more than me, Elon Musk says I can sell internet in your country.
Yeah, Starlink.
Starlink, okay? It's transformational. What do you do? How le bokra we rai?
We reka go se fala na hela o connect.
You understand?
Yeah.
And that's not been the offering.
Jesus.
That's not been the offering for internet.
Yeah.
You get me?
You need the IP here, but yeah, no chinchila no.
This guy says no. Buy this dish. Yeah. We used to call. You used to call a guy to come to your house to climb at the top and do whatever, and you pay him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's giving you 5 times the speed for the same price as the guy is giving you here. He's giving you a stuff in the farm. I mean, I have to put it in my farm. I haven't put it yet, but I'm going to put it.
No, you know, tota.
No, that's what I'm saying. So ultimately, the question is, how do you end up continuing with another provider who's employing people in your country? You understand? These are the difficulties of globalization. Even as a regulator, how do you respond to it? You can only respond to it by collaborating with other regulators.
Yeah.
Okay? And because the other regulators have the same problem. By the way, even home country regulators have an issue.
Yeah.
In the US, they have a problem with Starlink.
Yeah.
Because it's also undermining all these other guys, provide internet locally in the markets.
Yeah.
Okay, small businesses that provide internet, that hire people in that community. Suddenly, you are bypassing those communities you are providing in the sky. In the US now, they're debating about saying, no, you must limit the amount of satellites this guy can have.
The guy is a genius.
No, that's what I'm saying. You see, that's what I'm saying. But you know the geniusness of what he does is also funded by the US government.
Yeah.
You understand? Because what they have done is that they're shifting the risk away from government
to an individual,
to the private sector.
Yeah.
Okay, NASA is paying for this, but it's no longer now sending, because to build a
shuttle,
to build another shuttle to go to this thing is a lot of money.
Yeah.
The launch takes a lot of time. These guys do it super quick.
Yeah.
At a lower cost.
He's sending astronauts now, and they pay him to do that now.
Yeah.
So,
you understand?
Yeah.
So and then he finds other rich guys to pay for some of it by saying, give me 10 million to fly you to the moon and back.
So, Rona, how we so rectify we are now? You mean things will get more complicated, but we still, haven't completed our process this side. Catch up probably, or even try to mitigate whatever might be coming.
So 5 years ago, I can't even recall when we approved this thing.
Yeah.
There was certain technology. I get it.
Yeah.
There were certain assumptions that the bidders made about their business because they all have technology providers.
Yeah.
Today, the evolution in this industry is so fast that today the business case that was presented then is invalid. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So when you now tick the box today and say, I'm giving you permission to go ahead, what are you giving permission to go ahead? Okay? The guy is going to come back to you and say, yes, no, thank you for allowing me to go ahead, but my business model has changed.
Hey.
My business model now is I'm more electronic. My business model is I'm going to run this thing through apps. Okay? You understand? In the old days, I mean, even today, people still want to see a bit of paper. Ticket over the counter, and then you get a piece of paper. It gives you numbers, but now you have it on the phone. A lot of our young people have this thing on the phone, so you can buy it online, and then you wait for the announcement and you look at your numbers.
Yeah.
And you won, and you get automatic transfer into your money account for what you've won, and it's done. Because basically what happens is every week after the draw. Okay? Yeah. All you do is you verify the numbers. If 23, 3, 13, 14, 72, whatever were the numbers that came out of the draw. So if you have 2 of those numbers, you've won something. So immediately, once verified and approved, that company then pays the money to those people. So when I want to, on Monday morning, if the draw is on Saturday, On Sunday, you get your money into your account, plump.
Yeah.
You no longer have to go back to the
kiosk.
retailer, say, no, can I give in... You know, the good old movies where people used to run back to...
I got the lottery.
Running down the street with people following you, but I've won the lottery. Now everything is electronic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff, though. I think this is where we're going to kill it. So we get ready for our part 2. It's been awesome, Ropman, and thank you for some gems. I mean, giving us a picture of also what B-Dub looked like back in the day, because na reachable river walk, blind.
I think the beauty of having lived through this, you know, when you are young and the old folks say things used to be like this.
Yeah.
We lived through the era of resenting that.
Yeah.
Of so what? Botswana used to have 6 kilometers of road. So what?
So what?
We are talking about today.
Yeah.
We are now the ones saying that. Yeah, Botswana used to be this, and the youngsters are like, so what?
So what? No doubt.
Because things have really changed.
Yes, sir.
And I think what is important is our ability to respond to today's challenges. That's what's important.
Awesome stuff.
Because they're very different from our time. And I just pray that the leadership has the fortitude and the desire to focus on that.
Yeah.
And, I think too many times leaders focus on their own pockets rather than on developing a country. I got really selfless people that are prepared to move the country forward and be loved for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've never been approached?
For what?
Politics.
That's a topic for another day.
That's our part 2. Because I don't know why, but like, big up for saying no, because I'm sure they did. You know what I mean? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our show. Big ups to Ropman Red Thuli Johnson. We're going to move on to Getting Healthy on the Podicast with Dr. Rukara. Keep it locked, man.
Different identities. Podcast with BDC.
And we're back again. We're Getting Healthy on the Podicast. And as usual, we're hanging out with Dr. Rutendo Rukara. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Scar.
Emma, thank you so much for joining us. And today, we're going to be talking about lung cancer. Because, you know, some of us used to be smokers back in our university days. And then we quit because we heard that there's this cancer. You know, and funny enough, I've seen guys start smoking of recent because they say they're stressed now. Guys who didn't even smoke at varsity. So I just really want to get from you to a brief overview of what lung cancer is and why it's such a critical health issue globally.
So lung cancer is cancer involving the lungs, and it can affect different parts of the lungs depending on the cause. It's usually divided into 2 broad groups, which we call non-small cell and small cell lung cancer. And globally, why it's a burden is because it's the leading cause of mortality in terms of cancers worldwide for men, and the second leading in females, second to breast cancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So why is it associated with smoking? Like you heard in my intro there, that's the first thing that I think. It's like, yo, you smoke too much, you're going to get lung cancer and you're going to be out of this earth. Are there any other causes? And why is, smoking always associated with it so much?
So smoking definitely is the leading cause of cancer in 80 to 90% of the cases. And it's not just smoking, your risk increases depending on the number of cigarettes you smoke as well as the duration. So usually we calculate what are called smoking pack year histories. And if you've got more than 20 pack year history, your risk of smoking becomes much higher.
20 pack?
Pack years. So what you do, how you calculate it, you say how many cigarettes does a person smoke per day. If they smoke 20 per day, average over a year, so that's 1 pack year history. So if you've been smoking for 20 years, a packet a day, then we calculate it as 20 pack years. Jeez. So that's how we calculate your risk. So if you smoke 5 over 20 years, you are 4 pack year history. So your risk is much less than a person who smokes 20 in terms of developing cancer.
All right.
Yeah.
Whoa. So what are the other causes of lung cancer apart from from smoking?
So unfortunately, what we call environmental tobacco exposure is also a cause. So you might not be a smoker, but you stay or live with people who smoke, and they smoke within closed environments. So that exposure has been known to also increase your risk of smoking compared to non-smokers. Other things include pollution in the air. So people who cook or sleep in houses where there's firewood over the time, that can also be a risk factor. Certain chemicals in the environment, so your job, for example, fuel attendants, so exposure to diesel fumes has been associated. Other chemicals as well, radiation. So for example, if you had radiation for another condition, that can also lead you to a risk of smoking. And then there's the genetic element. So if you've got a family first degree relative, it means genetically you're predisposed, so your chances are higher. And then asbestos has also been linked to lung cancer as well. So a couple of environmental things have been linked to smoking, lung cancer.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but I hear you. Focusing on Botswana, though, what does the current state of lung cancer look like? Are there any unique challenges that Botswana faces when it comes to, the treatment and the diagnosis of the cancer?
So I think the good thing with Botswana is that when it comes to lung cancer, it falls a bit behind the leading causes of cancer in the population in Botswana. And I think that just goes to show that we are not really in terms of smoking, compared to the developed nations, not a lot of people actually do take smoke, and also the number of cigarettes consumed or smoked per day is much less. So smoking falls around 8th or 9th leading cause of lung cancer in Botswana. So it's not number one.
Okay.
However, the challenge also comes in diagnosis, because with lung cancer, unfortunately, by the time you pick up the symptoms, it's already enlarged. So the screening process is expensive, it's not readily available, and by the time patients get diagnosed, they're already at a high stage that's going to lead to death. And many people actually die from lung cancer without a diagnosis. So I think those are the challenges in Botswana in terms of early diagnosis, treatment options, as well as costs.
I think that's why we never hear that many cases of people who are smokers actually passing away because of lung cancer, because it really isn't the main thing. So people really should be looking out for bonobo asbestos and stuff like that. Huh?
Yeah.
Because there are homes that I know that were built back in the day with that material. So I think, stop looking at smokers like they're the only ones who are about to bounce. Yeah, because it can be any one of us. I want to get into prevention because it's always better than cure. What steps can an individual or communities in Botswana take in order, or around the world really, take in order to prevent themselves from getting this cancer?
So I think the most important, since we mentioned smoking as a leading cause, is smoking cessation. One, never starting to smoke in the first place, and those who are smoking to consider
Some people
stopping.
have already started, peer pressure.
Yeah, and for those who are smoking, there is good news.
Yeah.
So if you do stop smoking, after some years, your risk profile for lung cancer goes towards the same as a non-smoker, but it takes at least 15 to 20 years after you've stopped. So stopping smoking is of an advantage. Other things that you need to consider are obviously your diet and health, maintaining a good BMI, good nutrition, food with antioxidants that help to prevent cancer as a whole. And I think education is very important and key, so that when patients suspect or think they've got lung cancer, the earlier it's diagnosed and detected, the better the outcome. So if you diagnose it late, unfortunately, the mortality is 100%. But earlier diagnoses are like patients who are caught in stage 1. Their life expectancy is up to 90%, 5-year survival. Yeah.
So what about vapes and hubbly bubblies? We got, like I said, grown men out here, like without me telling, at the parties, these little gadgets that we have going around, are these also a risk factor?
So I think
how much is known about them?
Yeah. So unfortunately, sometimes when it comes to medicine, we always lag behind.
Yeah.
And we need bad things to happen for us to then go back and say exactly what is the effect of vaping or hubbly bubblies to people.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to take a few years after we go back and say, maybe has there been an increase in lung cancer? Were the people smoking vapes or cigarettes? But however, the data is not conclusive, except that we know definitely in vapes, some of them or most of them contain nicotine.
Yeah.
And that has been linked to lung cancer. So therefore, the logic would be that vaping would also risk lung cancer.
Yeah.
And most people who do vape also smoke cigarettes. So it's also like a compounding issue. But it's only going to take time when we now go back and actually study people who were vaping and versus those who haven't, and find out what actually the damage is going to be health-wise.
Awesome. And what advice would you give to anyone out there about lung cancer? Because it's not only smoking. So what other advice, other ways can they make sure that at least, they are on the better side of things? Because I've come to realize we're only alive to come and get sick, guys. We're always just trying to find ways to at least make it better. So how do we make our chances of, getting lung cancer a little better?
So importantly is identify your risk profile. So besides smoking, unfortunately, other forms of lung cancer, like one called adenocarcinoma, can happen in people who don't smoke at all or have never smoked, and most commonly in females. So I think early diagnosis is key. When you have symptoms that you are worried about, it's important to get checked, and early diagnosis and screening. So screening is happening in first world countries because their burden is much higher. Obviously, because of costs in Botswana as well as in third world countries, it's not really feasible. But patients who are at high risks, those who are above 40 to 80, who are smokers, like we say 20 pack here, there is a provision where they can actually get screened before the cancer symptoms have appeared. And they do what's called a low dose CT scans. So they go and scan the lungs and look for nodules or early signs of cancer. And once those are picked up and confirmed, then it's curative. But it's only now resources as well as risk that. So now for most of us, it's a wait and see game to say, do I have the symptoms? So the symptoms vary from a dry cough, coughing blood, losing weight, fluid in the lungs. It can be anything. But by then, usually this cancer has spread.
So you don't want it to have spread, you get yourself to a doctor as soon as possible. So with screening, do you, when you feel a certain way, like you feel, okay, maybe like my lungs are a bit heavy, do you suggest that I go to a doctor first, or I just go to like a screening place and ask them, can you do an X-ray? But okay, you wouldn't know what X-ray you want. So it's better to go and see a doctor first. So I think chest X-ray for us in our setting is the first step. But unfortunately for a chest X-ray to pick the cancer, usually it's large. So that's why CT scan picks up smaller size cancers. Sizes, but obviously the disadvantage with that is you now need to go in invasively to test. Is this just cancer? Could it be TB? Could it be an infection? What exactly is causing the nodule? So there's a lot of false positives associated with the CT scans. And for us, X-ray, if you're coughing, we can check the sputum. We can pick up the cancer cells. For those who come in with fluid in the lungs, you collect the fluid, you check for cancer in the cells. So there are various ways of actually diagnosing the cancer. So unfortunately, it's a wait and see. And for some patients, they might actually not even have respiratory symptoms. They present with what we call paraneoplastic, where your body presents with something else, and you go back and you actually find it's lung cancer that has happened. So it's really broad. If you're not well, just get checked. And if your risk profile is there, you're a smoker, other things, environmental exposure, then the doctor needs to then dig deeper and try and diagnose it early. Awesome stuff. That's Dr. Rukara. Always a pleasure to have you in the house. You can check her out at Rumor Med Clinic. It's right over there by MRI, next to Block 7. Baisago. Yeah, you can always pop in there and check them out. Doc, thank you so much. We'll see you again next week. And that's been the PODI-CAST, guys. We'll check you again next week as well. 3:00 right here on the Local Corner Multimedia YouTube page. We out. Peace.
People of different identities. PODI-CAST with BDC.